What do you think, should be made to mitigate, some of these concerns?
Yeah, so I think that we need to have a clear understanding of what we want to do.
Yeah.
I studied political science in my first degree.
Yeah.
I clearly knew what I was about and what I wanted to do. While studying political science, I minored in social work as a profession. I had read extensively about it and I knew what it was about. For some people, they just want to get into the university. And we've carved some very nice title for some courses and whatever management and liberal, we carve some
just to make
some
space for the
terms.
numbers.
You get it, some terms. And so I think that it is very important for people who pursue some of these programs to have a clear understanding of what they want to do.
But honorable, some are given to you and you can't do anything about it.
No, you have opportunities. You see, you have the option. It is not as though it is forced on you. So until you choose it, you are not given. And trust me, sometimes when you don't choose it, then the university, have a system that still keeps you in on their list.
Yeah.
And sometimes they would want to reconsider you, so they give you certain, but it is still up for you either rejecting the offer or accepting the offer. Whether it is in your interest or not, it still gives you that option, that opportunity to either decline or accept the offer. And so until we move from that level of desperation to wanting to just be in the university, trust me, we are never going to get done with some of these issues. So it is not a matter of those who orchestrate the program or those who propound the program. For them, they have developed the curriculum for it. As to whether the job market would, and when we are running a country where, so recently I met a friend who did something about hospitality management, something like that. And she's currently working, is it Achuma or Bieja Bank or something, or one of those rural banks,
Yeah.
and there's a clear disconnect. Oh, like, I mean, what did you read? She mentioned hospitality, something, something. And she mentioned to me, oh, so we say Ghana there. So this is what she said. And earlier she said, oh, send me say page you mama. Do you get it? And so you see that there is a clear disconnect in what we study and what the job market offers us, because of course there is a huge issue with unemployment. And so people do not even employ their full potential on the job market. And it comes back to how unproductive we have been as a country, because of course we are not able to extract the very potentials of our people, because there is that discrepancies where people are doing what they are not cut for, and people are doing things that they have no idea or no opinion about, but for the fact that they would need to earn ends meet, they would need to get into it. So we need to properly look at it. It's not a matter of putting up punitive measures for people who propound or castrate certain programs. For them, they have developed their curricula, and most of these development comes from other places and what they have seen happen, and so they think that we need to have that also as a country. However, for people who patronize those programs, need to have a full comprehension of what they are getting into.
Themselves into.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm seeing technology integration, part of the Edu revamp. So it's saying partner ed companies, ed tech, it does education and technology companies, to introduce e-learning platforms and resources across all campuses. So what categories are we looking at?
So yes, for me, I think that the basics are very important. For
Yeah.
instance, in my lecture area, I mentioned to you what I've done with the QX, which are for students, to embark on research works and all of that without necessarily connecting to internet. So I think that once we get students to abreast themselves with technological tools, then of course they have a clear understanding of what it is, progressing into the pre-tertiary and subsequently in the tertiary level. So of course, we need to look at it from the three-step approach, starting right from the basics or the prelims of their education. And so yes, now there are a number of e-learning platforms. Recall that during the COVID period, of course, some lectures had to be done over
It was like
over
printed
over
online.
over over online. People even wrote their quizzes and their exam online, and it was okay. It was okay. In fact, even as I speak to you now, there are professional courses where people would have to. There is someone who is mutual to the two of us who did his studies abroad and only attended the graduation in the US. Did the studies whilst the person was still going about his business here, and just attended the graduation. And the person has earned it. You get it? And so I think that we need to come to terms with some of these advancements and we need to start introducing them. You see, um, we have a, an e-learning platform in KNUST where, of course, sometimes we upload assignments there.
The V class.
The V class. Trust me, a lot of students are not abreast with it. So sometimes when work is put there, when assessment is put there, we are not able to work on them because we do not have full comprehension on how they work or how they operate. And so I think that of course we need to start right from the basics, incorporate some of these things into their learning so that of course it translates into the tertiary, and then of course we would have a huge productivity base when it comes to technology.
Okay, so we go to student welfare. You call it the Stu Life Initiative. How different is it from other welfare projects that we've seen in the past?
Okay, so for me, this is another inspiration of when I was serving as KNUST SLC vice president. And at a point, I had met a young girl in social sciences account office, and this young girl was crying profusely. At a point, I waited and thought that at a point she was going to end the cry, but I realized it kept escalating until I tapped her on the shoulder. She was in veil, so suggestive of a Muslim, and I asked her why she was crying. She narrated to me that for two academic terms or academic years, she hasn't been able to make payment for her school fees. And so this time she has been pre-warned or forewarned that she's not going to be allowed to sit for examination, and that accounts for her crying profusely. So I had to quickly, assimilate her issue, introspect deeply into it to get to appreciate which of the bursaries that, of course, we could, suggest to her. And it is quite worrying that a student will be on campus and not even, know that there is any bursary of a sort to remedy them when they are going through difficult moments, especially when you are impoverished. And so I quickly went into it and realized that of course we had the KBN as part of the bursaries that Ken Westy had. But the I settled on the KBN because for that the disbursement process had to do with the SLC, and so I subsequently became SLC vice president. Per the constitution of our SLC, your vice president is in charge of welfare. I don't know for others, but this is KNUST, except it has been amended since I exited the SLC. But the point is that when I became SLC vice president and I served as the welfare chairman, what I did was that I needed to expand the welfare, bucket so that it is able to now benefit a number of students. So what I did was we injected 7 billion, that is old Ghana cedis, that's 700,000 into the KBN fund. And this time we were to pay not in bit and in quit, but this time we're to pay in halves and in fulls, because we argue that once a student is impoverished, the student is impoverished. So depending on the background checks and all the interrogations that you do, then of course you're able to settle whether you are paying in halves or in full. And beyond that, what we also did was that even after we were done with the disbursement process and we realized that there were still a number of students who weren't privy to the opening of application to have applied, for me as the welfare chairman, what I did under my signature, we made sure that we directed the university account office to directly deduct student school fees from the SRC's coffers. Because my argument was very simple, that why do we have huge money seated there and students will have to go through these difficulties? Beyond that, we instituted another fund called the NOCOFIO, where we felt that, like I said in my preamble, that once students are impoverished, you pay for their school fees. What is the primary reason for being there is to study.
Yeah.
So you've paid for the school fees for them to sit in class to study. What are they going to use in purchasing learning materials and handouts?
Yeah.
And so we instituted the NOCOFIO that gave them cash in hand so that they are able to buy handouts and other learning materials. I mean, except the sustenance of that, second policy, that's the NOCOFIO. But I do not know whether, of course, successive government or successive
Continue.
administration continued. But it is what we did. I'm saying this to let you know that I have great concerns for the welfare of students, and we have done it before. We moved the KNUST KBN beneficiaries from about 1,300 to about 3,000 and over. And
That's more than 100%.
that is more than 100%. And like I mentioned, we paid not in bit and in quit. We gave very strong commitment to it. So you see, for a policy like this, we are looking at. I'm very happy that the 57th News administration has started a program like that,
Yeah.
or a policy like that. It looks like this is streamlined to target persons living with disability.
Yeah.
And of course, it is a prima facie of it. But we also need to appreciate that beyond persons living with disability, there are other people who also are faced with several challenges and difficulties. And of course, in this journey that I have been on, trust me, I've had to pay school fees, I've had to assist people pay for their hostel fees, and a number of things. I've had to give money to people to buy food on daily basis and all of that. I've appreciated the difficulties that students go through. And I think that, of course, we will need to enhance a policy like the 57th News administration have done. We need to relook at it, review it, so that, of course, not to scrap it, or to make significant changes to it, but of course to add, certain sect of society or student bodies to it, so that it is not directly, targeting just persons living with disabilities. Because of course, by appreciation and an article I read, everybody seemingly has a 10% disability. Even when you think that you do not have any disability, there is a 10% disability everybody lives with. And that could count also for some of the difficulties, or that contribute to what makes some people incapacitated, to be able to afford, paying for school fees, and also, buying learning materials and all of that. So I think that we will give strong commitment to what this administration has started, and then we will better it, and probably look at the threshold of benefits, and of course the percentage and all of that. We will need to look at it and see how best we can expand it, and get a lot of investment into it, so that the expansion benefits significantly a good number of students.
So, in the case of the SRs, where you talked about, you mentioned the KB and Nukufio. They had fixed systems where you have people pay SRC dues every semester or like every year. But this time around, you are going to run a new administration where everything is going to be pre-financed, because up till now, every administration and every successful administration hasn't yet been able to figure out a way to take their dues beforehand. So how that is the challenge now. How are you going to go about it?
Yeah, so you remember clearly, it came up in my vetting. And then, of course, I stated the position of the Constitution of the National Union of Ghana Students. I made inference to Article 22, and then I spoke about the V that, has to do with the dues payment and all of that. You see, there is a clear punitive measure that has been ascribed to that particular constitutional provision.
Mhm.
However, we haven't really, applied the punitive measures, and the punitive measure had to do with it taking voting rights from member institutions when it comes to CC and all of these events, CC Congress and all of that. It is because we have been very comfortable with the convention or what the norm has been. And so we have tended not to concern ourselves with it. And of course, it looks like it's a take home. So let's run the administration, let's pre-finance it, and then at the end of it, we take it home, and that is all. A new administration comes, and you need to find your ways of. We need to put in proper systems and structure to look at this issue. I think that the constitution is very categorical that just like the SRC operates and the disbursement is done, it is the same way the NUCs, the percentage of NUCs that is supposed to be paid into the national coffers of the union is also supposed to be done, except to say that we've not had proper conversations around it. So I think we will need to engage management so that, of course, they come to terms with what the union is about, how it operates, its modus operandi, and how important it is for disbursement to be made into the national coffers of the union, just like the SRCs, have their disbursement to operate or to go about their outline policies. So yes, of course, it is something that, of course, during my vet, and I made Ghanaian students aware that I'm going to give strong commitment to it, so that in subsequent administrations, for me, I think that yes, the conversations of our union has been about uncapping get fund. It has been about student loan trust fund and a number of issues that are very itemized and are not new to students. And so every time, that is why we have turned our policies around, and we come and we are not able to holistically address some of these issues. And for subsequent aspirants or candidates, it will still be the same topics. I think that in the 58th NUCS administration, we should be able to concern ourselves with dealing with some of these issues, so that subsequent administrations coming or transgenerations coming would find different issues that confront students to deal with, so that it is not as though every now and then the conversation is moving around student loan trust fund, is moving around get fund, is moving around the same things that, of course, everybody, we've been singing tunes, fine-tuning words, putting new vocabularies and new adjectives, in putting up policies. I think it is wrong. And we are going to put in some level of commitment to see how we're able to churn a new path for the union.
But I'm looking at the case for the universities and other training colleges where they are going to tell you people haven't paid fees. We don't have access to this money. And if you don't have access to these monies, how do you even enforce, the laws of your constitution? Because this is the university. The university is saying we don't have fees from these people. So how do you expect us to pay?
How then does the SLCs operate?
Well, because that is the SRC and they have their own internal system, but that won't be that would be up to them either to review to NUCS or not, but they are not obliged to review. If they say, okay, we are also not working on any project because we are waiting for students to pay their school fees and all of that.
They are. You see, that is why I keep saying that we need to redefine the importance of the union to these institutions. You see, when there are issues, they are calling on NUCS. When there are strikes, when there are price hikes, school fees hikes, and hostel issues and all that, we remember that there is a chief advocate, there is a union that could speak on this issue and get government to be proactive in attending to some of these events. We should exercise the same strength when it comes to disbursement of dues. Trust me, you do not need the whole of the wholeness of students to pay as it were SRC dues before, of course, you are able to make payment to the union. How much is the union even taking? It is 1 cedi.
Yeah.
It is 1 cedi. And some SRCs are taking way beyond 100 cedis.
Yeah.
So just imagine, even if you've had 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70% of student pay, you are able to, within that payment threshold, make payment to the union on the 1 cedi. And
Because of advocacy, because of NUCS advocacy alone.
It is not because of the advocacy alone, but it is premised on the operations of the union, and to also check student leaders and how we operate our union. You would agree with me that when there are too much pre-finances, it accounts for inflation of figures.
Yeah.
Because of course it bridges the conversations of accountability and transparency. But once we're able to lead strong conversations on some of these things, of course, we are also able to hold our leaders accountable and culpable. And until some of these things are done, we will go to Congress, we will go for CC, and we are not able to even challenge certain status quo, or we are not able to challenge how things are operated or how things are done, because you do not even have the modus. You do not even have the modus, because you are seated there making decisions. You've not been ripped off your voting rights. No punitive measures have been made to you, yet you are there making a decision that seemingly is valid, even though per the constitution it should be now. So I think that yes, of course, it is something that, of course, it has become a convention and a norm, and I feel it is very important that, of course, we will change the narrative, or we would have different conversations and approach to it.
Let's look at the case of training colleges where they do not have, let's say, these direct benefits because they can't even contest for positions at GNUTS. If we look at these training colleges, what do we say? What's the benefit of GNUTS to them?
So I bet to deflate or
Okay.
defute that, of course, they do not have the remit to contest. They are part of, in fact, they form part of the blocks. They are institutions, are member institutions under the union. Let's be very outright on that.
Mhm.
They have what it takes to contest. Past years we've had people contest from the union. In fact,
And one
yes, we've had
training college.
yes, we've had a tag person win presidency before. Um, and then with other portfolios, even as I speak to you now, we still have people from the tag fraternity contesting. And I
But
wouldn't want to mention names, but it may serve as though, of course,
campaigning.
So yes, clearly there are people who are contesting from
Okay.
the tag
In
fraternity. So
recent memories, I don't know of anybody who's gotten president or secretary from tag or any other training college.
it boils down to interest, and the readiness of people, to want to contest. I don't think that it is subject to whether you qualify or you are able to contest or not. It doesn't bother itself around that. It simply borders on interest, whether you have that conviction and want to run. I mean, nothing really stops
Because
you.
aside that, I'm looking at how they benefit from
Yes, so
loops.
with the benefits, recently we saw that the CTAC strike. I remember I saw the president of the union, Master Chairman Upon Daniel, who accompanied the TAC president, Master Razak, to the education ministry to have conversations. Then they came up with a statement that outlined how the conversation went and what the expectations of students should be. So I believe that, of course, they've also contributed to the issues that confront tag or teacher training. So there has been direct benefits. Yes, of course, we could do more. It is not to say that that is all that there is to be, or that is all that there should be. I think we can do more. And for me, depending on the issues that arise and how they get to the union, we need to man those issues up. We need to put premium on them. We need to, you know, give it that necessary attention. And trust me, uh, in the AGRIPAH's administration, the 58 News administration, we are not going to leave any issue untackled, regardless of the block. I mean, it being gaps, wherever there will be an issue, Nooks would have a seated interest in it.
Okay, so I'm looking at healthcare. You are saying that healthcare access liaise with Ghana Health Service to ensure students are covered under National Health Insurance Scheme, which is already existent, with expanded benefits. What are some of the expanded benefits you are talking about?
So for instance, you know that there are prices for renewal.
Yeah.
The expanded benefit would have to be we leading a conversation on the fact that, of course, we are students. Trust me, I've mentioned to you that there are times that I'll have to send some monies to people or students
Yeah.
to be able to buy food to eat. So 20 cedis, 10 cedis, 7 cedis means a lot to every student. And so, yes, we could lead the conversation on. I have done it before in my lecture area. I have registered people not just on in a day. I sometimes in a week, Monday, Friday, Tuesday, and all the days that would have health insurance people seated in my lecture area registering people for free. I think we can have that negotiation for students, across, so that every student is covered under the national insurance scheme. I mean, as it stands now, it will baffle you to know that there are some students who still do not even have NHIS.
I don't think it's because of the inability to pay, but because maybe me personally, me like this. Okay, I have it, but I've never renewed it again because I feel
You are bourgeoisie, sir. You are bourgeoisie. You see, your situation is unlike ours. Your situation is unlike
Let me
ours.
say this.
I say this because even in this interview, you have ballet something. See, something I've never seen before. You see, you have hope. I've seen a number of things here.
This wasn't sponsored by myself. I actually have
So you
that's
have
how it happened.
connections. Not everybody has that connection. So yes,
Okay. I appreciate that. Well, so I'm seeing also you are talking of capacity building, that's leadership and governance. I think okay, that is self-explanatory.
yeah,
You've stated your implementation plan and all of that, and organizing capacity
yeah,
building. I feel most of these administrations have done it, but we want to talk about tech uplift. That's technology and innovation. I've always loved the idea of the Silicon Valley, of the US. I've always wished we had something like that in Ghana where, technocrats, people who are, technically inclined and, gifted, meet at the place, to brainstorm, at least have a safe space, to, increase and thrive on their creativity. So what do you seek to achieve with your tech uplift?
okay. I think here we have something called, is it Tech Talk? Something.
Yeah, TikTok.
Yeah. So administration, we did that, and of course we had a number of students with innovative ideas and all of that. Come display what they have, and once we were able to identify the winners and those with very extreme ideas on technology and all that, we connected them with bigger tech agencies,
Yeah.
and also gave them some money to invest in their ideas, and of course what they had to offer. And so I believe that of course we could have a hub like that. We could engage institutions and agencies that have extreme interest in some of these things. Trust me, even at the basic level, you have students who are able to design certain crafts, and sometimes you are least to say gobsmacked or mesmerized about their abilities.
Yeah.
And I believe that of course these potentials needs to be explored and needs to be connected to certain agencies and institutions, so that we are able to get the best of it. And so yes, we are going to commit ourselves to these agencies, have partnerships with them. That throws a lot of strength on how to extract these um capacities of students. For me, I think that we should not get to a point where our direction or our focus has to do with just the theories. I think that we also need to explore other ventures, where, for instance, you get to the union's office, and
Yeah.
then there is a dispenser there that is made by a student, and it is very operational. And it is because we had to tap into this potential. We need to link this, connect these potential to certain agencies and institutions that affords them that opportunity to be able to perfect their craft. And it is what we are going to concern ourselves with.
Okay, so I'm a firm believer of women can lie, men can lie, but numbers do not lie. So looking at the numbers bit of it, how much do you think would be involved, in a project like this?
Okay, so we need to be very clear that, of course, I would not want to be a reposition or a repository of knowledge and make it look like I know everything. The point is that this is the idea. We've drafted it according to the the contributions of people who are in the tech space. Things are evolving, and we've spoken about um um we've spoken about inflations and
Yeah,
all of that. It affects some of these conversations. And so today you have a composite budget, but of course it needs to be relooked at.
yeah,
And so yes, once the idea is there, we will need to, when we are ready or when we
mhm,
are getting partners, at least have some of the time or the moment we are operating, have a clear budget for it, and of course work also around ancillary or miscellaneous, so that of course in the periods that of course we have been very clear about what we want to do, and in the subsequent days of implementation,
yeah.
we're able to cater for the exigencies that will come after. So yes, of course, we may not have a clear, budget on it, but of course, the idea is enough, and the commitment we will put in is also enough.
Okay, so you are talking of equity and inclusion, and do you think the office of women's commission so relevant this day and age?
Um, well, yes, it is, except to say the narrowing it to women for me is what needs to be looked at,
Yeah,
because over the period we've had men who have been depressed, frustrated, stressed, and all of
yeah.
that. And men are also going through emotional trauma and all of that. So yes, I think that we should have a more like a gender commission,
Yeah.
so that it looks at both sides of gender. I mean, female and then the male gender. So personally, I think that being very categorical, because of course now you have a lot of women doing so well. In fact, when you go to KNUST today is amazing. And when you engage students, especially females, they are telling you, I'm doing geological engineering, I'm doing ICT, I'm doing, and you realize that they are taking up what supposedly was supposed to
Men
be
used to do.
for guys or
Yeah.
for the male. So yes, clearly, whilst we build on bridging that gap of women, we are also creating an imbalance for men. And so I think that we need to alternate it, and we will need to look at it clearly, so that of course we do not build a faulty equilibrium. And so I clearly think in my mind, and I am very much convicted about this, that of course we need to reconsider it's, being women development to probably gender development, so that in tackling the issues thereof, at least it is able to look at, both genders, so we create a very equitable equilibrium.
So you agree with me if I say the office of women's commissioner is obsolete, and it's not relevant to today's era, because this is an era where women are saying we can do what the men can do, what a woman can do, a man can do better, and we still have this. And
Yes, 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 yes. We must appreciate that, of course, they are fighting and forging. However, the balance is still not at a level that, of course, society can fully appreciate. There are still vulnerabilities to women. And so, yes, we need to look at it side by side. However, in looking at it, my position is that we do not give only attention to the conversations of women, but we also consider, things that also affect men. And it is my personal opinion that it has not become obsolete like you put it, but we need to subtly look at it and probably redefine it. We need to redefine it so that, of course, nobody is left behind. Because we sit in the same classroom. Now, women are pulling strengths. You see, in engineering and all that, I've met women who have very strong GPA. Some have 85 in engineering, and guys are around 50 something and all of that.
Yeah.
It tells you that those times, what's created an imbalance, equation in this whole conversation was very simple. That, of course, women were just discouraged from going into it. Wasn't because they were incapable, it was because they just had been prevented and
You
they
check
had
your
not been
microphone from if it's off at the back. Okay, yeah, yeah,
they had not been given the opportunity. Now the opportunity is there for them, and indeed they are proving that they are more than capable. So now that the opportunity or access is there, we need to now be looking at, how now we are going to carve it so that, of course, it is now a conversation on gender and not, women development alone.
Okay, so still on equity and equality, do you think the teacher training allowance is still relevant? Because the very purpose for which it was implemented has been done and dusted. Right now, we have an overflow. It's attractive. Why do we still have the training or teacher training or nursing training allowance? Do you think we should scrap it off? Because right now, it's just bad because government owes them. It has to pay. But meanwhile, right now, we have an overflow and right now we can't even employ them. Do we still have to, continue giving this allowance?
Okay, so first of all, we need to look at it from um how it started, the motivation for it. It was cancelled by the erstwhile NDC
Yeah,
administration, and their position seemingly had to do with your own position.
yeah.
But then, of course, it's had to be relooked at because um, at a point you realize that it has become an incentive that gets people there. So when you take that incentive that gets people there, then you are going to have a shortfall again. And
But
so,
but not to cut you. Right now we have about 145,000 people, that's teachers and nurses at home. 145,000 waiting the same appointment. And then also let's look at the case of China where they brought the one birth policy. For a very long time, we were just giving birth to one. And now there is like that loop. So can't we look at a situation? Okay, right now we have an overload. So let's do something to shed off the load. Then when it's getting to a point where we think we can introduce it and remotivate people, the people would always choose the nursing profession. Unless you want to say people are not interested in nursing, because not everybody could meet the competitive nature of getting to a public
have
university
we,
to do nursing.
have we also considered,
Yeah,
what they've had to go through? At some part of the education, they would have to go and do some internship in some villages
yeah.
where they would need to rent for about a year or so, and they will need to fend for themselves and all of that. I mean,
People in UDS also does that. They do a trimester, and sometimes they live in communities, at the test on like in the test semester.
well, we should also appreciate that. You know how their school fees is structured.
Yeah.
You know how their school fees.
How is that
They are,
structured?
they are paying school fees every term.
Yeah.
They are paying it every term, unlike the university.
Hmm.
So yes, of course, we need to also look at that. The commitment they are also making when it comes to education. We should also look at um the freedom, the access that university students have. I mean, university students even have a lot of opportunities to explore certain options. You get into entrepreneurship at their free space. You get it. But then, of course, the moderation and regulation in teacher training far outweighs it. Do you get it? And we, in as much as of course we appreciate the UDS situation, it's an isolated situation. How many universities does that.
Mhm.
It's an isolated situation. But then, of course, this is a cut branch. This is something that runs across. Whether you like it or not, you would have to, at a point, move outside of your terrain, go and hire and all of that. The issues that it comes with, the inconveniences and all of that. It's difficult. I've known people who have had to go and teach in some of these villages as part of their curriculum. And trust me, they came back with certain diseases that they never recovered and they lost their lives. So yes, of course, it is also a very dangerous, venture that of course they get into. So let's consider it as a risk allowance. So yes, of course, in as much as we will need to relook at it. Yes, of course, I'm not entirely discouraging this conversation. However, I'm also asking us to also consider some of the things that contribute to the, you know, um, 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 having a valid reason why they should receive this allowance.
Okay, so well, all right. I have my reservations, but let's go to sustainability and environment. That is also self-explanatory, and I think you are the first person that I've seen prioritize, sustainability and that's afforestation. It's very important because of climate change and all of that. It's been a topic around the world. That this shows me you're a global citizen because you are paying attention to all of
Global
these things.
issues.
Yeah, global issues. And I also see sport and extracurricular activities. And I also appreciate that. Why the need for sports?
Yes, yes, you would appreciate that the number of people who have had, cardiac arrest because they barely even exercise. And beyond that, you also need to consider the fact that um, it is not all of us, who would go into academia or probably go into that line of white collar job and all of that. True force, there are some people who went to um, um, uh, certain SHS and they were in the sports fraternity whilst they were playing the super zonals and Interpol and all of that, they were identified by some scouters, and today they are doing so or they are excelling, in other fields of sport. So I believe that of course it is very prudent or important that of course we incorporate sporting activities in our curricula so that of course it do not take away the talent such that of course somebody may possess certain composite talent, but the fact that the person well, the fact that the person gets to school, it's just vanishes or it just goes waste as easy as it goes. I think that we need to also provide some level of consideration to people with varying sports talent and all of that so that it affords people to meet their destinies. And beyond that, we need to also look at the health aspect of it where it's remedy people from cardiac arrest and of course all other forms of diseases or sicknesses.
Okay, that's straight. We've sat here for about 2 hours, and it's experience. This is you going for presidency, so that we deliberate on all the issues, so that people actually get to know your policies and they get to understand why they are voting for you. That is why we are doing a gradual breakdown because sometimes it's we don't have these conversations every day. So when we have you as a busy person, we must be able to exhaust all everything. Yeah, you talk on point nine, partnerships and collaborations is being, that's your global connect project. And um, please walk us through briefly the global connect project.
Okay, so and I mentioned to you earlier
Yeah.
that I've been in the UK and I've worked with some agencies.
If you're a fortunate person, if you could afford plane tickets to the UK, then you shouldn't say that you made a statement, oh, you've afforded this, you've afforded this. Some of us can't. But if you've been able to, go to the UK and back and, you've been going every time and back, that means you're fortunate. Life has been fair to you.
Well, that I need to appreciate God for that. However, you must also appreciate the effort of some people who have made it possible. I would acknowledge a few people here who have been very instrumental, in some of these things. Uh, you see, I have worked with some agencies in the UK that has given me that opportunity to help people down south here. And so I believe that with such openings or such opportunities, we're able to leverage on some of these events to expand access and opportunities for Ghanaian students. I think that, of course, I've had the opportunity to also do some studies in the UK, and I have very good connections with them. I believe that we are able to have collaborative, conversations with them, have bilateral agreements with them, so that, of course, we're able to connect our various institutions here with them, and then, of course, embark on exchange program. Once I was in KNUST, I remember I traveled to Belgorod State Technological University, in Belgorod, Russia, to have an exchange program and all that. These are things that, of course, we have done before, and I believe that given the opportunity, there is a clear roadmap that, of course, we could follow. There is a blueprint that we could follow to help all Ghanaian students.
Okay, so some of these things personally have actually, right now, like let's say some of these exchange programs right now are pretty much non-existent. Are pretty much non-existent. So, well, you talking about it, I appreciate the fact that you are talking about it so much because most of it has been pretty much non-existent. So this brings us to the last part: transparency and accountability. I want to know, since you are talking about transparency and accountability, one thing that has been a problem in this part of Africa has been has been a problem in most administrations. And yeah, so how are you funding your campaign?
So I must say that most part of it I've had to fund it, but then, of course, through the benevolence of other people, we've had support along the way. In fact, the Efiene family have also been very instrumental. Intermittently, they are contributing, some monies to help us in our rounds, and, of course, some of the activities that we embark on. And I greatly want to appreciate them. And some individuals who have also played very significant, role in this journey. For people who have believed in us, their commitment, to this dream has been to commit financially to it, so that, of course, for them, it states clearly that indeed we believe in your vision. So yes, it has been very challenging and difficult. However, I must appreciate the people that I've encountered, the people who have been very strong-willed and have committed greatly, especially financially, to this cause. And I want to take this opportunity, honestly, to appreciate them. Coming back to transparency and accountability, it is something that, of course, I have done over the years. For all the roles that I have served in, everybody would attest that, of course, I have heightened the conversation of transparency and accountability. You see, let me narrate this to you. When I was serving as SLC Vice President, something happened. There was this time I went to the account office at the Dean of Students, now Directorate of Student Affairs or
Yeah.
something. And the account officer asked, Are you, Agrippa, are you the vice president of the SRC? I said, Sir, yes. Funny enough, he said, How come I've never seen you here before? Because in previous administrations, once the president submit the budget or the financial secretary submit the budget, the vice president will come, peruse the document, see where the inflated figures are and where the cuts are. But you've never been here. As naive and young as I was, I remember clearly in explicit terms my words. I said that, Sir, I have integrity and dignity to protect. Life transcends beyond the four walls of KNUST. And these were my precise and concise words to the accountant. I have always put premium on the conversations of posterity. It is just a period of about 8 months, barely an academic year. There's a future ahead of us. I do not think that I would want to trade my future for embezzling or misappropriating funds in the opportunity that these great people would give me to serve as their president. And so for me, I have, in most of my deliveries or in most of the speeches I've had, and treated student leaders across the length and breadth of our country to be much considerate when it comes to some of these conversations, because I have always said that, see, at the end of your administration, nobody would put adjudication on you on the strategies and the metrics you put in place in winning an election. Everybody will put strong adjudication on how you administer. So for me, results and performance are things that, of course, I do not condescend on. So I strongly believe that, of course, it is very prudent or imperative that leaders or student leaders are as much as possible, transparent and accountable, because the very people that we are leading, trust me, I don't know the number of people you are leading in your various institutions, but come what may, all these people have their cameras on you. It's rather unfortunate that you do not know all of them, but because you are just one person leading all of them, they have their cameras on you, and they are going to be your human testimonials tomorrow. The one's going to put adjudication on you when you want to climb in the ladder of leadership. And trust me, some of these people are going to sit behind their TVs, tell us of that time perhaps they may have their family, and tell that this guy is a very scrupulous person. This guy is part of why I couldn't complete school. This guy is part of why we had to go through this problem. But best believe that there could be another narrative of it. And of course, I would want to be part of the later, where people see you on TV, see your flyer, or see anything about you contesting for something else, and they are ready not just to come with their strength, but they are ready to come with their resources, because when you were given the opportunity to serve, it was because of you that they were able to complete school. It was because of you that they had potable water. It was because of you that they were able to, access certain scholarships, and they were able to go through this education thing. And so, yes, of course, when it comes to transparency and accountability, I am very passionate about. And of course, it is one thing that we are going to, in the 58 NUTS administration, God giving me the opportunity to lead. We are going to make sure that, of course, we place at, the prime, of our administration.
Yeah, well, it shows how committed you are and how passionate you are with how you answered the whole question. I'm down to two questions. So, how much would one need to contest a NUC's position, budget-wise?
Okay, so it depends on how you are running your campaign. AGRIPAH is running the people's campaign. I'm running a campaign of a message, that resonates with the people. I'm having conversations with the people on my beliefs. I'm having conversations or with the people on my convictions. I'm having conversations with the people on where our union, emanated from, where we are, and where I think we should be. These are the conversations I've been having with the people, and trust me, the people have identified with our message, and so it has not been a flamboyant campaign where, of course, we are pumping money, buying people, buying the conscience of people, paying people to be doing a lot of things for us and all of that. For all the things that people are doing for us, it has been because they believe in the AGRIPAH dream. It is because they believe in the conversations of the arrow of hope. It is because they believe that, of course, yes, we have the track record, we have done it before, given the opportunity, we will do it, and we have stronger commitment to delivering to the Ghanaian people. And so, yes, when it comes to a conversation on budget wise, we have been very modest when it comes to, running this campaign, and it has solely been about the people and for the people. And so, yeah, honestly speaking, I'm not able to put up a figure that, of course, this is how much anybody needs to run the election. Yes, of course, it is money involving. However, we have run a campaign of understanding, and I believe it is what has saved us, huge quantums of money.
So, if a young guy comes to you, Master Agrippa, please, I have 50,000 cedis. Will it be enough to run a NUC's campaign? What would be your answer?
Well, certainly, it depends on your approach to issues. If you would pay heed to, I think that nobody should run for office out of a vacuum, that you do not know what you want to do. You do not have a message. You do not have any conviction. I do not subscribe to that. So I think that if you have a message, if you know what you are about, and you're able to sell this vision or this understanding or conviction that you have to people, I believe that yes, of course, you should be able to run with 50,000. Trust me, somebody could even run NUCs with less than 50,000. I think so. What is most exhausting has to do with, traveling around and being with people, and you need to, make sure that, of course, they're okay and all of that. But once you are within, the remit of the needs of students, trust me, they make it less heckling for you, so that it is not as though you are always having to entice people with money, living a flamboyant life, making people feel you are rich and trying to throw money around and all of that. I think that that is not the message that students are looking for. That is not what students expect of us. Students already appreciate that you are not working, you are a student. And so where do you get those quantums of money from? And of course, that when people throw a lot of money into election, then of course there is a plan to recoup. And so yes, we have run a campaign of understanding, so that of course the people know that yes, we did this with you. And if we did it with you, then it means we have a responsibility towards you in terms of delivery.
Okay, so do top ups win a Nooks election?
Well, I mean, it is very dependent. It is very dependent. Of course, I believe that the Constitution states categorically which people are entitled to vote. And we need to stay within the jurisdictions and the position of the Constitution. So I do not really know your interpretation to top ups, but I know that ultimately it is the strict delegates who are supposed to be making decisions on who becomes the next president or who leads the next phase of our union.
So have you seen flaws in the electioneering, process of Nooks?
This year?
No, not this year, but in all the years.
Well, yes, there has been one or two displeasures and discrepancies in how elections have been organized in the past. I mean, it accounts for why at a point there was a clear division of the union, where we had the Gombela led administration and one other person, and it took, Tenkaro, those times when he was the next president, and then I think Master Gombela. Yes, so there were a proud issue to that before the Gombela administration and the Tenkaro administration, found a common ground, a convergent point, to reunite our front. And it is as a result of this electoral, malfeasance, or discrepancies or unfairness that led to the breaking of our union. So yes, there has been a clear example, that has bedeviled our union in the past, and we need to do everything possible to protect the union going forward.
So far you agree, and you don't have a problem with the process you are going through?
Well, so far the system and all the processes have been fair. We are going to experience the finals of it, when we get to Congress, and specifically on the day of voting. I think by far the Electoral Commission have discharged their duties diligently, and we look forward to they continuing in that same vein, so that of course it do not obstruct the good work that they have done from the start, to this point.
Yeah,
So we look
and
forward to-
please, before I forget, but just remembered my last question. That's GNUTS. How do you plan to reintegrate them back into the fold? And why is Nooks still? Maybe I have to ask KOD that first, because currently Nooks is not representing, on the Get Fund, board, but it's GNUTS rather. But Nooks it's Nooks that advocated, and Nooks must be there, but Nooks are not there at the moment. Nooks has that, fracas with the GNUTS, that's the technical universities. Are you planning of bringing them back into the fold?
Yes, the conversations have been initiated by previous administrations. I do not have the full appreciation of the issues. However, I know, yes, there are unsettled qualms, and I think that it is something that we need to look at. I have strong commitment in reintegrating them into the NUCS fraternity, because the constitution is clear that they are still part, or they are still a block under the union.
But there's also, in their constitution, they have like, a counter clause that says, you can't be part of anything loose. That means if they have to become part of the fold, they have to also review that, which is going to take a lot of time.
Yes, it is a block. You must appreciate how constitution operates. So all constitution seem to have, or seem to be a subset of the ultimate constitution.
Yeah.
You get it. And so except to say that technical university is not a school, or we cannot categorize it as part of a learning centers in our country. So far as they are considered a school and they are part of it, then of course they fall part of the mother union.
So you feel we should use iron hand?
It is not iron hand. No, it is not iron hand. It is about understanding the issues, understanding their displeasures, and of course on the round table finding a converging point where of course there are compromises. There need to be compromises, and before we are able to compromise on some of these, we will need to introspect into the issues, understand what really the existential problems have been, and that will lead us to be able to bring resolutions to say. I think you also spoke about its representation on the Get Fund board. So yes, my very good brother Master Dennis Appiah Labi, led a very spirited and strong advocacy on NUCS having a representation there. So for me, it beats the odds of logic to have GNUTS rather represent, because we are talking about Ghanaian students, and we know that NUCS is the mother union. How do we have an ancillary of the union on the board when the mother union is there? Is it that they are there championing the cause of all Ghanaian students, or they are there championing the cause of GNUTS? I mean, technical universities. So yes, of course, I think that it is something that needs to be looked at. But I follow the advocacy of Master Dennis Appiah Labi, and I think it is something that was agreed on. There was a covert agreement on that. So I am certain that of course next year it will not be GNUTS on that board. It is going to be NUTS, and it is by default the arrangement that Master Dennis Appiah Labi made with them.
But do you think that should hold? Do you think that should hold?
I certainly think it should hold. It is the mother union.
But
it is not arguable.
No, I feel it's also because they are separated from the mother union. That is why it's so. Because it should be a non-starter.
So if they are separated, then is that to say that the various blocks should have representation on it?
Every block has representation at NUCS.
Yes, no. So I'm saying that, is it to say that then we should disintegrate all the blocks so that they would all have representation on Get Fund?
No.
Yes, of course. The constitution is quite clear. And your constitution is a subset of the union's constitution. So you do not state an entrenched position that counter attack, or have a counter position on what the ultimate constitution of the union is. So clearly it's a breach. But of course we are not going to approach it with an iron hand. It is a matter of legalities. It's a matter of understanding the position of the law and how the interpretations thereof should be. And it is what we are going to. I am a law student. I understand some of these dynamics, and we would approach it with all the tactfulness that of course it deserves. But the surety is that coming year, it is the mother union NUCS that is going to represent on Get Fund and not GNUTS.
Okay, so Mr. Agripah, we are coming to the end of our interview, which has been very successful but very long. And yeah, talk to your students.
I want to take this opportunity to thank every Ghanaian student.
Yeah.
Um, it's pretty outstanding to know that you get to have conversations with them, the enthusiasm they accept you, the enthusiasm to how they respond to your message and all of that. For most of these people, before you get to them, they are even introducing you to yourself.
Yeah.
And it is because some of these students have given themselves the task of even researching about who Agrippa is. Most of them have appreciated my leadership way back, I mean, from SHS to university to the community level. And they are very clear in their minds that indeed Agrippa is the right man to lead our student front. And for this, I do not take it for granted. I do not minimize or trivialize this good that you have done to me. I greatly appreciate each and every one of you. The assurance is that from 22nd to 25th of this month, we are going to be making a very clear decision, a decision that resonates with our future, a decision that shapes the conversations of tomorrow, a decision that is going to have effect on generations and transgenerations to come. We cannot afford to make a mistake. We cannot afford to choose rhetorical leaders. We cannot afford to choose abstract leaders. We cannot afford to choose people who do not have a clear understanding of the issues that confront us. We cannot afford to have people who have not had a fair appreciation of where our union started from, where it is and where it should be headed. It is an election. I have previously enumerated that it is an election of experience. It is an election where, of course, we need people with a clear understanding of the issues that confront us. It is an election where we need to properly and carefully introspect into the issues that confront Ghanaian students. Trust me, left to Agripah alone, our heart and our minds will be open so that the intentions of our or ulterior motives are able, to come to bear so that students are able to know that indeed this is the ulterior intent, this is the ulterior plan of each and every one of the aspirants.
Yeah.
So that clearly students know the heart to which we have come to them to say. Trust me, if you ask Agrippa, as I sit here, about what I'm going to do for Ghanaian students, I know. If you ask me about my commitment towards Ghanaian students and when given the mandate, what I'm going to do, trust me, I'll not mince words. I'll know what to tell you because yes, I have built convictions around this. But when you ask me what I'm going to gain from being a NUCS president, what I'm going to benefit as a NUCS president, trust me, I do not know. And this is because I've put premium on doing away with anything that will get me to prioritize my personal gratifications or aggrandizement or put my parochial interest ahead of Ghanaian students. This is not Agrippa. My conviction is very strong and it is very resolute and it remains unbent and unbroken. I have strong commitment towards Ghanaian students. All I see from every Ghanaian student is an opportunity to serve. It's an opportunity to lead them. It's an opportunity to lead them to the land of Canaan. So I have asked them for but one thing or two things. I've asked them to allow me to be the knight that protects the realm, and I've asked them to make me the arrow of hope that pierces through the very exigencies and despondencies that confront Ghanaian students. I hold a bigger commitment, and without any shred of doubt or any sort of equivocation, I know that we will be able to lead our union to the next phase of it, that of course every Ghanaian student will be proud of it. Thank you very much, all Ghanaian students. Let's make ourselves proud by choosing Agripah to be the 58th NUCS president. Thank you.
Thank you, Master Agripah. Thank you, Ken Agripah. Ghanaian students, we've had Agripah in our studios. You mandated me to bring him under the bright lights to scrutinize him. We've done everything we can. We've done this over 3 hours. Asked all the questions. Ghanaian students, here is Master Agripah, and here are his policies. May the best man win. I'd like to see you in office, definitely, because I'm happy with how you've explained everything, and I'll be following the elections closely. And God willing, when you win, you will be part, or you'll be looking at the administration closely to, as it were, bring some of these things that we've already talked about and highlighted here. Thank you so much for honoring our invitation.